Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to do the half double crochet stitch. Since this particular stitch is actually one of your base, your foundation stitches you need to know, there's a few things that I wanted to go over before we actually start. And it's important that you know this now because going forward, it's going to make everything else so much easier because you're going to understand the symbols, you understand the abbreviations and so forth. So usually when you're working on a stitch or a pattern, it tells you for the foundation chain, it'll tell you that it has to be done in a certain amount of numbers. So in this instance here, foundation chain for a half double crochet can be done in any. So when I say any, there's gonna be some stitches that you make or some type of patterns that you need to go in and use, and it'll tell you that it has to be done like in multiples of 2. Multiples 2 plus 1 or something like that. So what they're just telling you is you have to have a certain amount of numbers for that stitch to work. So for a half double crochet, it could be any number, it could be even, odd, it doesn't matter. So that's why I wanted to show you this, because now this is gonna make more sense to you when you start looking at other stitches and patterns. The next thing you wanna know is the abbreviation. So half double crochet, when you see it in patterns, it's gonna be listed as HDC. So you see this listed as HDC, that's half double crochet, that's the abbreviation. That's what you'll see the pattern writers do. And the symbol for it, it's a long T. It's a T, but it's a long T. And then I want to go over a few more things. Since we're doing the stitch here, I'm going to give you the terminology to know so you understand what I'm doing, what I'm drawing, and how it correlates to the half double crochet. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the chain. So the chain, will tell you to go ahead and chain a certain amount of numbers. The abbreviation for that, when you see in a pattern, it's going to be listed as CH. The symbol for a chain looks like an oval. So it's going to be a oval. And again, don't mind me, my drawing isn't, the skills isn't the best. The next thing I'll talk to you about, you'll hear me saying yarn over. So you hear me say yarn over, you'll see that it's also going to be in patterns. It'll be in the stitch, it'll be abbreviated as YO. So yo, it'll be the abbreviation. The next thing you hear me say is, I'm going to mention loops, like how many loops you're going to have on your hook. So you'll see loops. And I'll tell you this again, this might sound a little funny why I'm going all into this, because now going forward, when you start seeing patterns and you start seeing the little symbols and a little chart next to it, this is going to help you out big time. So for loops, it's going to be usually as LP. Some people put LPS depending on who the designer is and what they felt like doing. So these are the main things you need to know. The next thing you're hearing me say is the term turning, like the turning chain. That's the next thing. So again, these are just terminologies, things that I want you to be aware of. So when we go forward, this is going to make so much sense to you. Now that we got that information out of the way, the next thing I want to do here is actually show you with an example. We're going to do 10 half double crochets. So usually what you start off with is going to be at the starting point of the pattern. Usually it's going to be like a little arrow, and just think of that, that's where the slip knot is at. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this little arrow here, and that's going to be our starting point. So just remember, that's the starting point of our foundation chain. And then for the half double, for this particular half double crochet tutorial, I'm going to be doing 10 stitches. So 10 stitches, we're going to start off with 10 chains. So the chains is an oval, if you remember correctly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we have 10 chains. The next thing we want to talk about is, so now that you got your foundation done, we're going to talk about the height of a crochet stitch. So the half double crochet, the height of it is 2 chains high. So we have other crochets, like a single crochet, it's 1 chain high. A double is 3 chains. A treble is 4 chains high. So, but this one, the half double, is 2 chains high. And I'll show you here. So once we finish the foundation row, which you see here, all the 10 chains, we want to chain 2 more to get to the height of our stitch. So in the pattern, you usually see it on the side, it'll be written up sideways, or it'll actually be written up and down like this, because usually the very first one is going to be part of that half double crochet or whatever stitch you're learning. So technically, if this was the half double crochet, this is where you see, so you'll see it like in multiple colors. It might be a lighter color, but a lot of pattern designers that make these type of charts, they will draw them onto the side. So just think of that as 2 different chains. So we have an actual total of 12 chains here, because it's 10 chains that we're making, but 2 to get to the height for the next row. So that's going to be the next row. That's the turning chain. That's where it's all that information. That's where they call that. So now that you have that here, what I want to do next is show you in this correlation, this part right here is going to be where your hook is going to be. So think of this little area right here is where your hook is at. So the hook is this little spot right here. And now that you understand that, the next thing I want to bring to your attention is the placement of the hook into the chain. So On a half double crochet, on the very first foundation row, it's going to be placed into the third chain from the hook. So this is going to be 1, this is 2. So we're going to place that chain and the hook into this spot here. So this is where it's going to belong. You're going to place it to the third. So you're going to count again, 1, 2, 3. Now the next thing I want to mention to you, so you can understand what these things are. So this part right here, let me go ahead and change the font. So this is also going to be considered the base. So that is the base of the half double crochet, because once you put your hook in there and you do your double, you pull it through and do the yarn over, all that goodies, that's going to create the base of this half double crochet. And this one right here, I'll do this in red. This right here is actually where the stitch marker goes. So you would place your stitch marker in that spot, and I'm going to tell you stitch marker, stitch marker, stitch marker. Use them. You got a bunch of them. They come in a pack. Buy them, use them, because you don't want your pattern or your design or whatever to lose stitches and just be uneven. So that's definitely what you want to be careful with doing. So that's the stitch marker spot. And again, this is going to be the base. That's where you place your hook at. And now let me go ahead and delete some of this here. And I'm going to go ahead and draw this over. Give me a second. All right, so we're going to have 10 and plus 2. So now that you know where that spot's at, the next thing we're going to do from this point here is half double crochet all the way to the very end of the row, so you get to your slip knot. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So now that you have 10 half double crochets and you're at the very end, so if you want to go any further, if the pattern tells you to keep on repeating that process, what you have to do now is go to the next row. The next row is going to be 2 chains high, because remember, that's the height of the half double crochet. So just like we did in the first spot, now this time we're going to do it this way. So we're going to chain 2. So once we chain 2, we're going to want to half double crochet into the very first stitch, which is on top of the old half double crochet. So this is where we're going to be putting our work in. And also I want to mention to you, this is what we talked about earlier, these terminologies. This section right here is also going to be your turning chain. So this is all the same thing. This is going to be your first half double crochet. It's also your turning chain. So what I mean by turning chain is, like, I'm going to give you the example. If you look at this here, and I'll show you when we do it in live. So just think of this as your pattern. You worked from the very bottom. This is your first foundation row. Then you went all the way to across. And then once you did your 2 chains, you went up here. So look at the picture. This is the 2 chains. So just imagine my hooks right here with the 2 chains. Then what we're going to do is flip it over. So by flipping over, we're turning the work over. So you're going to keep your yarn here and flip over the work. So that way, when you start working the next one, it goes in the same row. However, on the pattern itself, you're just going to continue half double crocheting all the way across till you get to the next, till you get to the very beginning. And you'll know, this is the part right here that I tell people, this sometimes is hard to find out where it's at. But because you put your stitch marker in that little spot earlier, which is the top of this, you know exactly where your hook needs to go. And that's the beauty of it. So that's why I tell you to use your stitch marker as much as you can. And also, like on this side over here, you should place your stitch marker there as well. So that way, when you go to the next row, you know exactly where to go. You're not missing it. And plus, you don't have to count. Once you know that's the end, you know exactly where you got to, you know, how many stitches you have. So now if you want to continue on, we do the same process, stitch 2 and go all the way across. And now that you understand that here, the next thing I want to tell you is, again, these are just the foundation stuff that I'm telling you, because once you go further doing different stitches, this is going to help you out tenfold. You can understand, like, okay, now I understand what the row, the foundation, I understand all that. So the very bottom row, we started going this way, this direction. That is actually the direction we go in. And that first bottom row where the chain is, that's your foundation row. So foundation row. And then the top part, so once we started going to this row here, where we did the first row of half double crochet, that is going to be row 1. And sometimes you'll see it with a number 1 next to it, or sometimes some people put the letter or type in row next to it there. So now that you got to the very end, so let's continue going this direction all the way here. So we start off this way, row 1 went that way, and now we're going to be on this part here. That is going to be row 2. So now that you know that's row 2, same thing, go across. If we start working over here, start chaining, this would be row 3. So I'm showing you that because now next time you see a crochet stitch like this, you're gonna see those little numbers. you're going to know what that means. So it's going to tell you row 1, row 2, row 3, whatever. So that's really important that you know that. So you're well advanced. You actually know a lot more than just this tutorial of me teaching you half double crochet. I've given you a lot of more information, which is going to help you along the way. And now let's actually dive into it. I'm going to jump into the other screen over here and show you how to do it with the actual hook and yarn together. In this demonstration, we're actually going to chain 5. We're going to do 5 half double crochets. So start off by creating your slip knot, and we're going to go ahead and chain 5. And it's important that you keep your chain, like don't let it twist. So I kept mine the same way the whole time, as long as you keep it that way. So now that we chain 5, the next step is to go to the height. Remember we talked earlier about the height of the chain? So a half double crochet is 2 chains high. So remember that. So now we have to chain 2 more. And now, from this point here, if you remember the drawing, I said you have to go back 3 stitches from the hook. So the hook's right here. So we're gonna go 3 chains from the hook. So 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna place it on the 3rd one, which is I want to show you so you can see. So because I know some demonstrations I see you can't really see too well, but the one on the hook doesn't count. So this is 1. That's the first one, second one, 3rd one. So this is where we want to place our hook in. So we're going to put it into the 3rd chain. So in order for us to do this, we're going to yarn over first, place it into the hole here, and then we're going to have we're going to yarn over, pull through. We should have 3 loops on our hook. So now we got 3 loops. I give it a little bit of length as well. And now what we want to do is yarn over and pull through all 3. So to do the next one, so again, you want to make sure this doesn't twist. So the next one, you're going to yarn over, go into the next chain, pull through, have 3 on your hook, give yourself a little bit of length, yarn over, pull through all 3, yarn over, next one, just got a few more of these to go. And the first couple ones are going to look kind of weird, so it doesn't matter. I like to use my fingers as much as I can to get the best grip. All right, give myself a little bit of length here. It's because my tension is kind of tight right now. So I'm going to give it a little bit of looseness right here, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. So my tension was tight there, that's why it was kind of difficult. Yarn over, go to the next one, and then pull through. You have 3 on your hook, yarn over, and like I said, give yourself a little bit of looseness so it can go a little higher. All right, and then yarn over, and this is going to be the last one before the slip knot. Yarn over, pull through, and this is where I talk about, give yourself, like I like to go up like about a chain high, so it gets a little bit loose right there, so that way it makes it easier for this to flow through all 3 of them. So that completed the first row here, and what you want to do is just take a look at your chains and make sure you have 5 of those V's. So you can see here, I've got, this is the first one, second one, 3rd one, 4th one, and the 5th one. And I'd like to tell you that when you first start off doing these chains and learning these things, I would tell you to use stitch markers as much as you can. So I know that this is the very first one here. So underneath that V is where I want to place my stitch marker. So you want to have your stitch marker right there so you can see that's the very first spot. So now that you completed the first row, row 1, you want to go ahead, and if you want to do the next row, you got to remember you want to go the height of the next row. So first thing you're going to do is turn your work. So that's how we turn it. So just to let you know again, some things I probably didn't explain earlier, but this is called the right side, the front side, the back side, or the wrong side is this one. So when they say turn your work, you're actually going to make sure that the working yarn is the one that's coming from the actual bundle. This is the tail end. So just these are terminologies I want you to know. So flip your work over, turn it over. And again, because the double crochet is going to be, the half double crochet is 2 chains high. You want to go 1, 2. So we chain 2 of them. And now what you want to do is work, and you want to skip the first stitch. So you don't want to go to the very first stitch here. You want to go into the second one. So again, if you look here, if I put it sideways, see the very first V, we're going to skip that one and go to the second one. So you want to go underneath the little V itself. So first, yarn over, go underneath the V, pull through, and you should have 3 on your 3 loops on your hook. Pull through all 3, yarn over, go to the next one. Again, we're going underneath the double V's. See that V? We want to go underneath both of those. pull through. So the second row is going to look different than the first row because the first row is the foundation chain. The second one is actually you're going over the stitches. So there we go. Next one, go underneath the V's. And sometimes you might have to use your finger to push it through. It's okay, because again, so it depends on how tight you made it. Some of them are made a little tighter than the other ones. And push through all three, pull through all three, yarn over. Got 2 more to go, and I know that because I see where my stitch marker is. So again, I'm right through the V, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And we got 1 more here, yarn over, and again, this is kind of cool because I have my stitch marker. I know that where to look at, because sometimes at the very end you see all these different chains and it's kind of like difficult to know where you're going. So I'm just going to use my fingers to press it through. So I'm underneath that V shape, and then what I want to do is yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and that completed. So there you go. We've actually got you got the rows done, and if you want to take a look at the V's, you want to count them. So go ahead and put this way here. So we should have 5. So I want you to see the V. So this is the very first V. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And again, this is where you would put your stitch marker for the next row. So that's how you do it. You've completed. Check you out. Now let's move on to the next one. So we got more videos for you. If you like this tutorial, be sure to subscribe because we got a lot more cool stuff ahead for you.